The Evergreen Show, taking your business from seed to sapling to towering giant. With your hosts, best-selling author and business growth experts Noah Fleming and Sean Veltman. This is the only show that gives you proven, pragmatic, and immediately applicable business growth strategies every week in 15 minutes or less. Here's Noah and Sean.
Well, hey everyone, we are back. It is the Evergreen Show. This is Noah Fleming with my co-host. We'll just call you the old man, Mr. Sean Veltman. Sean, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. My title fluctuation is like a roller coaster. I'm always interested to hear what you're going to call me, and usually it's nothing too bad. So today's another good day.
Yeah, my brain kind of blanked out there for a minute. And it blanked out because I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. I just can't get my mind off that. We are going to talk about one of our favorite things to talk about, to work on with our clients, something that we continue to pressure our clients to do more regularly. Even those who aren't our clients, we talk about it often, and that is the long lost art of role playing. We think role playing is one of the most powerful and important things that companies can be doing in all areas of the company. In our case, especially with our clients, specifically in the sales arena, in the sales department, but with a number of my clients, either in retail space, some substantially larger retail organizations, we're often talking about role plays at the store level and in the brick and mortar space and how to deal with difficult customers and difficult situations. But I think, again, role playing is such a powerful tool and a powerful concept that is almost brushed aside, I think, because people think it's either beneath them or it's a bit silly or doesn't really add any sort of sense of realism or practicality to what they're doing, when in reality, the entire opposite thing happens. The role plays are incredibly valuable. They're incredibly important. And everything you do in role plays can help in the real life situation. So, Sean, I'm going to shut up now. What do you think? You love role plays?
I'm a huge fan.
Do you like doing role plays yourself?
I do. In fact, you and I often do them before we do any client work together. Right. And it doesn't have to take a long time. Usually you and I get it done in 5 to 10 minutes, but that 5 to 10 minutes of prep is invaluable.
We do. And I do find role plays are tough, especially in, I go to a number of different sort of business mastermind type meetings where the role plays are often done in hot seats in front of a large group of people. And I find that even if I know my material or my stuff and my expertise and it's all there, I get quite nervous in role play situations. So I do like the ability to do them one-on-one with somebody like you or like my business coach. I do them with my clients in very specific situations. And so I think they're valuable. I just sometimes, I don't know, I get a little cringeworthy in front of doing them as a group. Let's talk about a couple things. Let's talk about one, what we can do to do role playing individually, where we should be doing it in the business, why it's important. And then two, if we do have some people that have those concerns or those sort of, unsure feelings, what we can do to help them and to alleviate them. So there's not this sort of pressure, but there's more of a learning atmosphere there and something that we can pass along. Let's go down that road. What do you think?
That sounds great. And, before we get too much further, I just want to point out, you brought up a really good distinction there. Of
course I did.
Well, of course you did. You're Noah Fleming, national treasure. So the distinction that you brought up that I think is super important is that there's role playing one-on-one in a relaxed environment. And that's what makes sure that you know your stuff or that you're not going to get blindsided or that at the very least, the responses that you want to give to the most common scenarios. And we've talked about this a lot, this ability to identify what are the most likely concerns, objections, questions that you're going to have to be prepared to work with. The second thing that you brought up, though, and I don't think we've talked about this before, is that when you're doing it live in front of a group or when you're on a hot seat, that adds a whole other element, and that adds the stress element. And it's incredibly important to do it in those environments occasionally as well, because we all know that how we operate under stress is very different than how we operate when we're relaxed or when we're feeling confident or at our peak. And that stress really is what is going to show us if there's areas that we need to work on Often, and I don't know if you found this, Noah, but what I found is that very often the most valuable thing to come out of a role play is how people deal with situations where they don't know the answer or where they've been thrown for a loop. And having the responses to that and being able to smoothly give a response to something of the effect of, that's a great question. I hadn't considered that. Let me get back to you within 24 hours versus stammering or stumbling or really, trying to do something on the spot and looking more and more disheveled as time goes on. That is often the most valuable piece because it trains people how to deal with uncertainty, which is a very transferable skill.
So let's talk about a couple of use cases then of how we use referrals, or not referrals, how we use role plays with our clients in some of those situations. So as I mentioned earlier, we do this with sales teams and salespeople in particular. So obviously there's some natural stuff that comes to mind. I mean, prepping for a sales call or a sales visit, for example, any two salespeople in an organization can very quickly have a role play. Now, I've taught this to a group of 85, high profile salespeople, and they look at me like I'm crazy. But then you actually get them doing these things and they go, whoa, I actually got something out of that. Or gee, he said exactly what the customer's probably going to say. And I didn't have a valid response there. And so even making it part of the sales process to say that, you've taken 5 minutes to role play some sort of specific situation with a customer is key. I think the other thing you said there, Sean, which is important, is this idea of dealing with uncertainty. And so something else I know we've done is we've had sales calls with different teams where we've had everybody share something interesting. And then we've kind of gone around the room and role played that situation with a number of different people, tried to throw some curveballs, see what's happened, see what changes. Anything else you want to add in terms of use case? I'm sure you've got a lot of ideas.
Yes. So, I think there's, as you said at the start of the call, there's really two use cases here. One is prior to going on a sales call, prior to meeting with a client, it's always a good idea to take 5 minutes with a colleague or with your sales manager and just run through the most likely scenarios or some edge cases that are unlikely to come up, but that you want to be prepared for. So, run through a role play. What happens if they say, look, you've got 3 minutes and you're the most expensive option. We're a price shop here. So tell me why I shouldn't kick you out of my office right now. Right? If you don't have a valid answer to that, there's a problem. And if you're working under a time constraint, then it's even more of a problem. You can't launch into tell me all about your business and help me understand how I can help you if they've told you you've got a limited time to be in the office and you need to make your case. This doesn't happen often, but when it does, you don't want to be thrown for a loop.
One of the things you said there was the edge case, and people in many companies are notorious for bringing up the edge cases. Well, what if this? Well, what if that? Well, what if he says this? Or what if she says that? That right there, when you're having that discussion with somebody, that is the perfect opportunity for a sales manager, a leader, a CEO, a president, whoever to say, well, Sean, let's role play it, right? If you're worried the customer is going to say, let's role play it for a minute. And they say, well, I don't know. We don't really need to role play. Well, no, you do, because you're worried that they're going to say these things. This is the perfect opportunity. People love to talk about the edge cases. When you challenge them on it, what you find is that very quickly you can give them or help them, or they already know the right response to those edge cases. So the response you gave earlier, right? Let me get back to you within 24 hours and I'll have a more definitive answer instead of bumbling around trying to come up with something. Again, just implanting that. I just snapped my fingers there. I'm not sure if that came through. Just implanting that edge case response to that situation is key. The other place that I like to use role plays in particular is in live situations, especially I mentioned there some of my retail clients in the retail space. I'll often train managers and frontline managers to be mindful of interactions with customers and to praise the positive ones, but also to view the negative ones, and not necessarily to call that person out or to embarrass them, but to say something like, Sean, that was great how you handled that, but let's role play that really quickly again, and let's suppose now I'm the customer and you're you. but let's try it in this case or whatever. And you use that as a training opportunity to help them on the fly, to show them what is the type of response that our company typically would deliver in this situation, or how could we respond better, as opposed to just, again, as you said, being disheveled and bumbling around. I think that's key.
And I think it's such a powerful tool because you get this opportunity to really put everything both in your training and your experience as well as your company's expectations to the test, right? One of the questions I love to ask people in role playing is, what would cause you to recommend against buying from you, right? How would you know that I'm not a good prospect for you? What could I show you that would make you say, we shouldn't do business together? And if you as a salesperson can't answer that question, then I know you don't have a good sense of who your ideal prospect is. I know you don't have a good sense of the value that you're bringing, and you don't have a good sense of how you're differentiated. Because if you can't say no to somebody, then you really have no special value to bring to those who you're best suited to be working with. So what I find is when I ask this question to salespeople in the real world, a lot of them haven't role played for that scenario. A lot of them haven't role played for, different response types other than, here, I'm going to sit and shut up while you go through your presentation slide by slide, and I'll spend an hour listening to you yammer on. As soon as anything deviates from that, a lot of salespeople end up getting flustered. And it's because there's this lack of preparation, the lack of pre-work, and especially the lack of role play.
So let's then get, we've talked about different use cases. We've talked about areas in which we use them with our clients. I think we should get right down to the challenge here. I've got a challenge in mind. I don't know. I'm sure you've got one. I'm going to let you go first.
You preempted me there. I was hoping to build off of yours. I always sound smarter that way. Okay, the challenge I have is this. Recall that we've talked about two very different types and reasonings for role plays. One is a pre-meeting relaxed discussion just to make sure that your salespeople are prepared. So if you're not already doing this, make sure that at least once a week, before at least one call a week, with every one of your salespeople, engage in a role play. So if you're a sales manager, do this. If you're a salesperson, find a colleague and do it at least once a week. Prep them, tell them who they are as the buyer in this role play, and go. Have them ask you some questions, some of the standard questions, and then throw in one or two edge cases just to keep you on your toes. And I promise you that doing this pre-work beforehand is going to make the call much, much more valuable.
So, I'm going to now try and build off yours a little bit, but it's not much different. Just make sure that you're adding in role plays to some of the most common scenarios that your people are likely to face each week. So whether it is in the sales scenario, whether it's in the customer service department, wherever it is, just make sure that you start to add in a little bit of this. Again, depending on who's listening here, owner, operator, CEO, president, VP of sales, VP of marketing, right? You need to take the initiative sometimes and do a little role playing with your people. So go to them with a situation, go to them with an edge case of your own and ask them to see how they would respond. This can be done in all areas of your business. It can be done from a corporate values standpoint. It can be done from, an ethics standpoint. It can be done from a sales standpoint, a service standpoint, dealing with difficult customer standpoint. So again, we love role playing. We talk about it in great detail in our book, Dealing with Difficult Customers. We share different processes and tools that you can use to make this part of your standard operating procedures. But Sean, I think that's a great challenge for everybody this week, is to just start with something and give it a try.
I agree. So go forth and role play.
Go forth and role play. Okay, everybody. With that, I'm going to say thank you again for listening. This is, I think, we're getting close to episode 40 now. We're adding things up here. Available on iTunes and Spotify now. Make sure you share the show with friends, colleagues, co-workers. Rate the show, review the show. Otherwise, we will see you next Monday. And of course, you can always reach out to us, noahfleming.com. Hit the contact button. Share your thoughts, share your concerns, share your complaints with Sean. And we will talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to join us each and every week for another great episode of The Evergreen Show with your hosts, Noah Fleming and Sean Veltman. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on The Evergreen Show.